What up, leaders? Welcome back to my channel. Still in Prashad Nagar, here on Chandra Nagar Street. We're looking at some of the changes. Last video got to be a little too long, so I had to stop and record the second half of this tour of Prashad Nagar. Like I said, this is the more recent kind of construction happening in Prashad Nagar, a mega mansion. You can see the slate, well, in this case ceramic tiles on the roof. But this is what the houses built in the 1970s looked like. This is what they were renovated to look like in the 1980s, 1970s, you can see. But over here, this is much more recent renovation in the 2000s. This is when, I think, in the 2000s, you can see the arches are smooth. The houses were built to look more like where people who built them resided in the years preceding. So people, for example, who lived in Canada came back and built houses like this, similar to houses that they probably left in Ontario. Right, that's probably Ontario style house. So you can tell from the way the houses are built. This one, for example, has this large house at the corner that's being built on Chandra Nagar Street, has the ceramic tile roof, and that, for example, is what you'd find in South Georgia. This is a new home that's being built with a tall arch in front. Again, this is much more of a North American style compared to, say, what was built in the 1990s, which tended to be much more Indian in its architecture. And this one seems to be under construction. It's larger, the footprint is going to cover all of the land. So the law here says that your boundaries of the house, the walls of the house, should be 10 feet away from the fence, and you can see they've maximized that. This is what was built before, and when, of course, people renovate these 1970s homes, you bet they're going to utilize all the space to build the largest house that they can, and that is what is happening here in Prashad Nagar. So we're trying to find the Promenade in Prashad Nagar, but right now we're approaching the northern boundary and we haven't run into it yet. But this is new developments in Prashad Nagar. Like I said, a little bit of history. The land used to be a rice field, an abandoned rice field that was purchased by developer Hari Prashad, and he divided up this land into lots which he sold as house lots. This is the local temple, I suppose, or is it the mosque? Let's take a closer look. Oh, it's a mandir, so it's a temple. And so he sold these plots of land for housing and named the streets after members of his family. This is a new built, new construction, as you can see, a modern design, and this is what is the most recent wave of building in Prashad Nagar and in Georgetown in general looks like this, with a rectangular profile and a sort of fractal rectangle within a rectangle within a rectangle design. So you can see that reflected. Morning. That reflected in the designs of recent houses. They tend to be larger too. They also tend to be self-contained. In other words, all of the activities are inside, whereas previously in the 1960s, 70s and 80s, the kitchen would be outdoor. They would design verandas, a lot of outdoor veranda space, like this home which has an outdoor veranda. And so there's still some outdoor space, but most of the modern homes, some nice German Shepherds, most of the modern homes now have everything self-contained inside the building. And that's the characteristic of North American design, where if you're living up north, for example, you know, your garage has to be enclosed so that in winter your car is not under, you know, piles of snow when you wake up in the morning. And so people are adopting the same things here as opposed to carports, which used to be common, right? The carport did not have a garage door. So as for example, this house doesn't have one, and that was built in the 1970s, perhaps a Guyanese, much more Guyanese design. But the renovations in the 2000s saw a lot of people returning from North America, from Canada and the US, and building homes like the ones they lived in North America. And that's what we see in this wave of renovation. Larger homes with kind of a North American architecture, which is a good thing because the North American designs tended to be much more energy efficient. But in the tropics, of course, that means cooling. Right? The houses are built in North America to retain heat, whereas in the tropics we have too much heat and you have to therefore air condition them, which is also a good thing because it lets you control the quality of the air, the indoor air quality, if you have to pass the airflow filter and cool it. But this is what's happening here in Prashad Nagar. Morning. You know this neighborhood? I'm looking. You don't know this neighborhood? I'm looking for the mall, the Promenade. You remember the new Promenade that they built with all the. Yeah, man. They had like paving stones and so on, like what they built near to the Pegasus. Is that around here? Okay, it's probably Bel Air. Which avenue? Which avenue?
You gotta go to State Street, go down to the avenue.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so we thought that the promenade was here in Prashad Nagar. Apparently it's not inside this neighborhood. I'm gonna take a look at it wherever it is. I thought I'd run into it by now. This is what, Chandra Nagar? Morning. Chandra Nagar Street in Prashad Nagar. And we're coming to the end. Right, this street on this western boundary is Delhi Street. Yep, here it is. Finally a sign. Right, the sign says Chandra Nagar Street. Chandra Nagar Street, like I said, this plot of land purchased by Mr. Hari Prashad, and he divided up the land and named it after members of his family, and also places in India that he had visited, and that is how the names tended to be Indian. This is Delhi Street, which we visited yesterday, and the next neighborhood is morning. The next neighborhood is Plantation Bellier, which we visited yesterday. So this is what Prashad Nagar looks like on the western boundary of the neighborhood. And this is, of course, we saw yesterday the drainage development that is being built in the neighborhood. So we didn't run into the promenade, but we're going to take a look at it, try to find it, locate it, and then eventually put it in the next video. Right, so the history is in fact quite intriguing, how this neighborhood in Georgetown, Guyana happened to have uniquely Indian names. It's because Mr. Hari Prashad had the foresight to purchase vacant rice fields and turn them into this housing development called Prashad Nagar, the streets of which are named after the members of his family and the places in India where he'd visited. You want to see more content like this? Click like and subscribe in the comments below. Tell me what you think about Prashad Nagar so far. Tell me what else you'd like to see in this neck of the woods. And if you live here and you know more about the history, share some of that history with us in the comments below. Share this video with friends and family around the world. Let people know what's happening here in Georgetown, Guyana. Later!